as we're reviewing this movie in front of a backdrop to a to like a Sears photo lab.
Yeah, it does.
We're reviewing this movie from the final scene of Grease. We just gotta wave goodbye. So we had kind of a long day.
Yeah, the whole day devoted just to seeing this movie.
Yes, absolutely. Gotti is the new John Travolta movie in which he plays, it's the biopic where he plays John Gotti, and it is not playing in Springfield at all. And it was a movie that I really wanted to see anyway. John Travolta is one of my favorite actors. He's playing John Gotti. This is like a kind of a passion project for him. It's been something he's been trying to get off the ground for 10 years or more, or something like that. Like, this went through like years worth of like pre-production to get this movie made. So I really wanted to see this movie anyway. And then this movie's been making some kind of news, especially here in the last few days since it's been released, because the reviews of this movie are savage. To say it's not getting very good reviews is kind of putting it lightly. That made me kind of more curious to see this film, not to mention the fact that, I mean, it's not doing itself any favors that a trailer that they put up for it yesterday, maybe it's just like a Twitter trailer or something like that, but it was on the Gotti movie Twitter account, in which they put up a trailer saying like, who are you gonna trust, the audience that loves this movie or movie critics that are just trolls with keyboards or something like that? Like,
they are the enemy.
I was like, whoa, man. Like, really, that just applies to Armand White. That's tied just for him, but like, all I know, he loved this movie. He might have. So I really wanted to find a theater close to us that would maybe be showing this film. So I looked at...
Oh, never mind.
Oh, no, I was looking at... I was like, okay, maybe Decatur, maybe Bloomington, maybe Champaign, maybe near, like, Edwardsville or something. And then I was like, oh, well, wait, hang on, I haven't checked Peoria. So I checked Peoria, and out there was a theater out there showing this movie, and Peoria is about 90 minutes from us. So I said to you, I was like, hey, honey, you want to go see, you want to drive out to Peoria to go see Gotti?
Well, I was curious too, and it was my day off, so I was like,
so
why
perfect! Road trip.
Yeah, so we took a road trip, and...
I think the last time I made a road trip to go see something, it was maybe Dancing It's On. Totally worth it.
Also, Disaster Artist, The Disaster Artist.
Oh, well, I was kind of already in Champaign anyway, but yeah, I would have gone out there to see that because I was tired of waiting for it to come to Springfield, which it never did. So, and I doubt Gotti will make it to Springfield either, but, so, you know, as I was watching, and before I get into, really what I thought about this movie, well, okay, I guess I could just go ahead and get into that now. I don't know if I have anything else. Is that the movie's not very good.
No, it is not.
It's not. However, I never... when a lot of blurbs that I've seen about this movie that go so far as to... because this movie's getting trashed. And like, when it's going as far as, like... 0 stars, so flat, like no one likes this. But yeah, like just a dumpster fire, worst mafia movie of all time. I'd rather wake up next to a severed horse head than watch this movie. F0, flat, no one likes it. Flat 0 on Rotten Tomatoes, all of that. This movie is not very good, and we're gonna get into that, certainly, but... it never crossed into that for me, that it's that bad, that is worst mafia movie ever made, unintentionally funny.
It was definitely not unintentionally funny, and I would never put it in that category.
there were a couple of moments where I was like, but as a whole, no. I almost want to sit here and sort of defend it, only in the sense that I never sat there thinking like, oh my God, get me out of this theater. I am hating this. I am just a terrible, horrible mafia movie, one of the worst of the year. It never crossed into that. I've probably seen 20 movies this year that I thought were worse than this movie.
Well, it has like... Oh.
No, go ahead. You look
like you were really about to say something. I just said, like, there's heart behind it, you know? Like, it's not, like, cynical or anything like that, you know? It has, like, a...
There is passion behind John Travolta's performance in this movie. It's not
like, it just... Let's throw this out. It's not like Emoji Movie or something like where it's just like, let's throw this out because, you know, references to kids liking
Sure.
You know, it actually has, like, passion behind it, you know?
There just had to be a better team to make this movie.
It is so messy with its storytelling.
It is directed by Eric from Entourage and co-written by Leo Rossi from, like, Halloween 2 and Relentless and... bunch of stuff, the Fast Getaway movies, and he's in this movie as well. And there had to have been like a somewhere along the 10 years, some kind of cohesive script to go along with this movie, because this movie is, and I'm sure you'll agree with me on this. I'm positive because we talked about it for 2 hours on the way back.
Because we were like, okay, well, we just need to talk about it.
This movie is random.
Things just happen in this movie.
It is entirely dependent on you already knowing everything about this guy's life, about this guy's story, all the bullet points of this guy's life. Yeah. It is dependent on that. There is no kind of setup to anything. There is no insight into John Gotti or his life and all this stuff. It is just a series of bullet points. There's really no narrative to the film. There's no scene that leads from one into the other, like, okay, this happens, which causes this to happen, which causes this to happen. It is just a greatest hits of this guy. Yeah. And I was sitting there not confused by it because I've seen John Gotti biographies. I saw the Armand Assante movie. I knew where eventually it was going to go and what was kind of going to happen in a lot of these spots. But as I was watching this, I was thinking, like, about you, thinking, like, you've got to be somewhat confused watching this. Because
I don't know. You know way more about this guy's life than I do. I know of the name, but I
Teflon Don, man. And I wouldn't go so far as to say I'm an expert on John Gotti by any means, but I know enough to... What's up, another spider?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
I'll roll the window.
Please. Sorry.
I know all the bullet points of this movie, so I knew, like, okay, like, this is gonna happen towards the end, this is gonna happen here. This movie is like, there's no setup to anything. There is Sammy the Bull is there, and he is not a character. He is just there. And I know who that is, because I know eventually he rats on John Gotti. I know...
Oh, he was on that ratted?
Yeah, I know eventually what this guy's gonna do and what is gonna send John Gotti to prison. But if you're watching this movie and you know nothing about this guy's life, you're not gonna take away anything from this film.
Like, a biopic is supposed to tell me about this guy's life. I mean, not, like, leave me more confused.
Oh, right.
Yeah, that was... Because... So in the movie, every single time it would show a person, even if they're not ever mentioned again, it will write their name down at the bottom. And it'll say the location, the time, the what year it is. And I guess that's helpful sometimes, but when you constantly do it, I'm like, okay, I need to take in this information. And then never brought up again, like, about this person. And it's just like, okay, this feels really... confusing.
Even people who are in it for more than one scene are just there. Kelly Preston, who plays his wife, we don't see how they meet. We don't know their story at all. She is just
in the beginning, kind of, a little bit. Like,
okay, maybe a little, but like, oh, the opening credits?
Yeah, that's
a thing to get to later. But like, yeah, like, so she is just there as his wife for a few scenes.
He has to get her better because, you know, after their son died, you know, he was like, all right, that's enough.
Again, that's random. Suddenly he has a family. Suddenly his kid is dead. Suddenly, when he gets cancer later, it's just told to us later. It's like, you know, dad's cancer and everything. This movie is like if you were to take The Sopranos and you were to watch it like, okay, now I'm going to watch, like you've never seen The Sopranos before, and you're like, okay, now I'm going to watch a random episode in season 1. Now I'm going to watch a random episode in season 3. Then maybe I'll go back to an episode in season 2. Maybe now I'll jump to season 6. That's what this movie feels like. It's confusingly non-linear. Sometimes it's the 70s. Sometimes it's the 90s. Sometimes it's the 80s.
Yeah, and in the beginning it shows him, John Gotti, playing like himself after death, like kind of like recalling all the moments of his life, and he's on some bridge. Is it like?
Oh, it starts with that, where he's on the bridge. And he's like, New York's the greatest fucking city in the world.
And then it cuts to like, you know, all the other scenes going on, and then it cuts to another scene where he is old and has his son visiting him.
When he's in prison. Yeah,
when he's in prison, and so it's like, wait, who's narrating this now? Is it the old John Gotti, or is it the John Gotti after he's dead? Because it's like, well, and then after this, I did this, and it's like, is he talking to his son, or is he talking to us from after?
You're right. Like it picks two different storytelling techniques.
Yeah, I'm like, okay.
It gets confusing because then he's narrating it after he's dead about events that happened after he died. Now, like, Casino did that kind of thing, not exactly the same, but better, where you've never seen Casino, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a character in the movie who is narrating it. There's a few different characters narrate it, but one of them in particular dies later in the movie, and he's kind of narrating it before his death scene happens, and then when his death scene happens in the narration, he makes a ooh kind of sound.
Oh, that's funny.
Like that. They made that work. In this, it's again confusing. It's edited so confusing. It's like taking a John Gotti bio and just throwing it into a blender and just taking out the bigger pieces and leaving behind the smaller stuff that would have made this make more sense, or at least flow into some kind of narrative, because this movie does not have a narrative.
No, it doesn't. It's just things happen, and then it's just like, this happens, this happens, this happens. Oh, and then I met up with my friend, and then it'll show his name on the bottom.
Yeah.
And it's like, never mention again who that person is or what they do and what makes them so important to this story.
Right.
And then I'm like, okay, well, okay.
Yeah.
This is confusing. And, yeah, it's just like, who's telling me this story? And then it'll cut back to the present, which is, I guess, what like 1990?
He went to jail 92, I think.
Well, they cut back to him, like, shortly before his death, I guess. Because right after that, yeah. So, I mean, like, and then they keep cutting back to when he's talking to his son in prison, and then they talk, yeah, I don't know, it's just, it's helpful with the years, I guess, and the way they do his hair, because it's either really dark, or it's like salt and pepper, or he's old, and so I guess that helps a little bit with what's going on.
But not with his son. His son, John Jr., throughout a majority of this movie, his son looks like he's like 16 or 17 years old. So when you're watching it, you're thinking, okay, his son's really young. But then when his son is on trial later on, they put some gray into the kid's hair, and it looks ridiculous. This is one part where I was kind of like snickering unintentionally, because it looked like they just put a little bit of gray in a 16-year-old's hair, and it looks like it's like this school play version of the John Gotti Jr. story, starring like the captain of the football team. And earlier on, like, where characters will just randomly reveal information, like Stacy Keach, who's sitting there, and he goes like, "Oh God, oh sorry, just my cancer hurts." I'm like, what? Okay.
I was like, oh, so he has cancer.
Yeah. Now, what I will say about this, and you felt differently when we were on the way home. I was never bored by this film, and you were largely so. I wasn't. I wasn't, and most of that, practically all of it, I attribute to John Travolta.
No, yeah, totally.
Like, John Travolta is having a lot of fun in this. He is clearly putting a lot of passion behind this performance, and it is a performance and an actor that deserves far better than the execution of this movie.
We both agreed on that.
John Travolta has a lot of really fun scenes in this movie, and I was like, yeah, okay, he is one of my favorite actors. So I was sitting there just enjoying seeing John Travolta play John Gotti, especially because it's such a passion project for him that was making it heartbreaking as you're watching it turn out like he wanted. But I did enjoy him in this. He has the style of John Gotti, like down to the suits, his charisma, like he gets the larger than life personality of that down. He does come across as this very, just walks into a room and he would be like just the center of everyone's attention. Like John Travolta has that down in this film. God damn it, it's a much better movie, deserves this John Travolta performance.
Yeah.
Because I did really enjoy him in this film.
And I thought he was really good in it. It's not like I thought he wasn't entertaining. You know so much more about this guy's life than I do, so maybe that made it better, like more interesting for you. But for me, I was like so lost for most of it. And I started kind of nodding off like 15 minutes before the movie ended. I just started laying here and I was like kind of like my eyes were just getting really heavy, and I just was like, my head kind of started falling a little bit, and I was like, it was only for like 10 minutes.
I was wondering how lost you were. I figured you would probably be lost in this movie.
I'm
because
lost in every single movie.
No, but I mean, especially a movie like this, where it's like, I was sitting there thinking to myself, like, I know who some of these people are because I've seen enough stuff beforehand, but I knew you really hadn't, so I was like, I was wondering what you were thinking about this movie, because part of me was also like, maybe she is enjoying it because Travolta is having a lot of fun in the movie. I mean,
I enjoyed his parts in it. It just didn't, because the storytelling was so messy and everything was just so, I don't know, just hard to follow, and just all that, and everything else was just not that great about it. You know, and John Travolta isn't all of like most of it.
Yeah,
I just
he is.
Was just kind of, you know, like, he's good in it, but it wasn't making me, like, you know, oh, this is a performance you must see, like, kind of thing.
But it was, like, it was carrying this movie as far as entertainment value for me goes. Like, I was way more entertained by this movie than I was at Superfly last night.
Or we were talking about Dark Crimes.
Yeah, Dark Crimes, which is another movie that, like, we didn't like, but we liked the lead performance in. I liked this movie better than I did Dark Crimes. When
we were talking about on the way home, you said that, and I was like, gosh, I don't know. What I liked about Dark Crimes was that it's so against type for Jim Carrey to do a serious role. I mean,
that's true.
Besides Number 23. And so, I mean, that's what made it really entertaining for me. I was like, this is really entertaining and interesting to see, but with John Travolta, he does do serious roles every now and then. So it's like,
yeah, certainly.
So it's like,
you could picture it's not inconceivable that John Travolta's playing John Gotti in a movie. Like,
they're both not good movies. I just kind of, I don't know. I was really like not quite sure which one to pick. I like
this one a lot better.
You like this movie more than I did.
This movie did have scenes that I liked. I mean, it certainly had a lot of scenes that would work if there was a more cohesive narrative to it.
Well, you said you liked the dentist scene when he was on furlough to go to...
Oh, yeah, there's one scene where, this was pretty good, like, where yeah, he's in prison, and then he says he works it out to where he could go see the dentist, but when he's doing that, he goes off to this hotel to, like, shoot this guy in the shower. Then when he comes back, he signs his name back in and gives this awesomely cool like, Travolta smile to, like, that was really badass.
So they show, like, how he's able to still do his business inside prison.
Yeah,
so
I liked that part. I liked, later on, the sequence where it was, it was this montage sequence towards the end where it's stuff with his son and also, like, John with his cancer and everything, and it was playing Come Undone by Duran Duran, which, I mean, maybe I'm a little biased towards that scene because that is, like, my favorite Duran Duran song, and it doesn't get enough movie play, so I was enjoying that, but I would like to talk about the soundtrack
I was just gonna
for a
say,
second.
like, I was, like, holding my tongue, I was like, okay, we need to talk about the soundtrack. So in the beginning, it starts out with, like, the rap song, and I'm like, interesting.
It did that in the ending credits too,
yeah,
I think.
And then it would start doing like stuff that was like, you know, for the time, what was a popular song, what would match the mood and stuff. But then it would cut to like you said, like Walk Like It.
Oh, yeah, so here's the thing about the soundtrack in this. I thought Come Undone was used well. Other than that, this movie does have a good soundtrack. It has songs in it that I love, but it's songs that are just put in there with no thought or rhyme or reason to it there. Like okay. a couple times it makes sense when it's playing Heart of Glass. They're in a club, so like okay, that makes sense. But as much as I liked that scene where Travolta says he's going to the dentist, but then goes and shoots the guy in the shower and then goes back to prison, for whatever reason, it is playing the theme to Shaft. Okay, like, I mean, it was funny, like, I mean, and it's like, I guess, I mean, it's not like it doesn't work, but I'm like, why the theme to Shaft in this scene? And then later on, when, a car blows up in one scene and people are standing around it, and it's playing, Pet Shop Boys for just this one shot, and then later, when one of the times he's acquitted, it starts playing Walk Like an Egyptian. It's so random. It would be like you're watching this, it would be like, yeah, if I wouldn't have put it past this movie to be like, all right, we need to talk to the guy who hit my son with the car, and then 99 says love balloons, like, okay, like,
kids like balloons.
and even, like, just, when you mentioned the opening credits, it reminded me of this, too. This movie could not make up its mind whether or not it wanted to, in news footage or newspaper clippings, show either the real John Gotti, which it does in the opening credits, and then sometimes later on, it will in a magazine. But then other times, when it's showing magazines, it will be John Travolta. Or,
yeah, it keeps switching on and off about whether, because usually at the end of the movie or in the beginning, you show the real person, not during the movie.
When it did that to the guy playing his son, later on, when it showed
this big guy, like,
and then here is this boy band member looking guy with a little bit of gray in his hair who looks like he just graduated high school. Like,
I was like,
whoa.
Why would you do this during, like, right after John Gotti dies, they show, like, real footage of, like, you know, the parade that they were doing and, like, you know, like, remembering John Gotti and stuff. And it would show, like, John Gotti and, you know, like, the real John Gotti and all this stuff. And then it would flash back to, like, John Travolta or something. And I'm like, well, this just makes it weird. Like, just...
I almost feel like
it's not like it made me confused. It was just, like, it just seems like a weird way to put everything together. You'd think you would put that at the end of the movie.
I almost feel like there could be another edit of this film. Maybe there is enough stuff. And it's, look, I don't know, I'm just guessing, but like, maybe there'd be enough stuff was left edited out of this movie. Maybe this is a film that could be made better in editing, or slightly better, slightly more, like maybe there's stuff in there that maybe sets up this person, or this event, or that event, or maybe have maybe to edit some kind of narrative into this film. Just be more smooth. Yeah, because as it is, look, this movie's not good. It's not. Like, but I mean, at least, again, like, it is produced by someone who had some passion for this. Like,
yeah, like, there's heart in it, so it makes me not want to, like, hate it. Like, at least someone tried.
I don't hate this movie.
No, I don't either.
I just sat there like, this movie's not good at all, and there are certainly enough things that you could talk about with this movie that make it not work, but I never sat there thinking I was watching some kind of dumpster fire, or, like, I just thought I was watching, like, just a bad biopic, not one of the worst movies of the year, or even one of the worst mafia movies ever made, especially since movies like Corky Romano exist.
I wouldn't recommend. I mean, if you like John Travolta, I would recommend it. Like you, like it,
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you're a big Travolta fan too.
Yeah,
Are you glad you saw this?
I'm glad I saw it. You know, like he did such a good job that it's like, I'm glad I saw him do this performance. I'm glad he got this movie made, even if it's not good. I'm glad he, after 10 years, was able to finally get this, because they weren't even going to put it in theaters, right?
No, this movie had just, like, a rocky, like, release. Like, it was, like, made to be theatrical, but then it was going to go on demand, and then they were like, okay, let's put it out into 500 theaters, because this movie has, like, 40 producers behind it, and one of the distributors is MoviePass.
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, like, I'm glad that he got that done. I'm glad he got this passion project into theaters.
This is a movie that you should just pop up on Netflix, and that is entirely dependent on if you already know enough about John Gotti going into it. Because if you don't sit there and watch this. If you do, alright, like, you'll see Travolta being entertaining for a couple of hours, and, you know, it'll be hitting bullet points, but there are better Gotti movies you could be watching. Like, I mean, the Armand Assante one from '96 is a better movie than this. There was even a TV movie where, I think it was called, like, Witness to the Mob or something. It was where, I want to say Tom Sizemore played Gotti, and William Forsythe was Sammy the Bull, and it was mainly about him. Like, and I saw that when it aired, like, I think back in the 90s, and I actually remember that one being all right. So there are better Gotti movies you could be watching than this, but if you already know enough and you want to sit down and watch this just to see something hit the random bullet points, sure, like, but again, this movie's not going to be on my worst of the year list. I've already seen 10 or more movies that are worse, that were much harder to sit through than this. As big of a mess as this movie is, I never felt it was hard to sit through. I mean, you did.
Only because I found it, like, hard to follow. Like, yeah, I wasn't mad at all. It was just a really messy movie with its storytelling. That's all it really was, and kind of boring. But there were parts, like you said, with John Travolta, like, because I laughed, like, in a good way. I laughed, like, when he smiled and stuff. And there are good parts, but, like, very few.
Then we had to drive 2 hours back home.
Yeah, and driving in Illinois, like, it's like corn. That's all. So we just drive like 2
There's some hills on the way to Peoria.
And I was starving. Oh yeah, there actually were some hills. I was surprised.
Right? See?
And I was starving, and so I went and got a sandwich, and it sucked. So
You bought a tuna sandwich at a gas station.
It was Casey's. Casey's has some good stuff.
Yeah, some of their stuff's
It's not like I went and got, like, sushi at some sketchy-looking gas station in Peoria or in the middle of...
I don't know, honey. You maybe shouldn't have that
There's
sushi.
some flies around that.
We'll just brush them off. You can't have that. You're a vegetarian. Any final thoughts about this?
No.
Yeah, same. Really, it's just not. It's not good.
It's not good. Yeah.
It really isn't. All right. See you guys.